Hi, my name is Tomasz Poszetek, and in this video I would like to walk you through or take you on a journey to solve the RPA challenge, the input forms one. Now, why I decided to make a video about this thing? Because with Populate desktop, this kind of a scenario is very challenging. So the RPA challenge is not a challenge because of its name, but it's really making it challenging for the Populate desktop to accomplish such a scenario. Now, why is it challenging? This is because once you navigate to the content of that website and you see these input fields, you'll realize that they actually don't contain any kind of identifiers that would allow us as RPA designers to actually identify these fields. I mean, they do contain this ID. However, every time you refresh the field or refresh the form, not only the layout of the fields is different, but as well the IDs of the fields. So this ID is just some random generated string. And in Populate desktop, we are unable to really bind a field with its label. Like there is no such feature out of box. I think it was in UiPath where you were able to simply, let's say, make a selector which looks up the label with a specific text. And then for that label, it is able to bind the input text which is related to it. However, in Populate desktop as of today, this is simply not possible. So what I want to show you is how we can actually solve this RPA challenge. The first thing I want to do is to download the Excel, because the goal is to simply fill in this form with data from that Excel sheet. So I'll just download it. Oh, I had it already. That's fine. And then let's create a new desktop flow. Right. So first, obviously, we will be triggering and opening that website. So the first step is to navigate, not to UI automation, but the browser automation, then to launch new Microsoft Edge with this URL. And I mean, we can wait for the page to load. That's fine. The next step is going to open the Excel, right? And we're launching now the Excel file. Now with a blank document, but with the following document that we have in downloads. So with a challenge. And let's say we will allow these to load all these add-ins and macros. I don't know if there is any, but if there are any macros and add-ins, then let's just do it. The next step is we want to get the first free column or row within that Excel sheet. So we will just grab those. Now, the thing that you have to know about this challenge is that this Excel sheet, it actually, it's free rows and columns. I mean, especially the free rows, they don't really end on the really last row that contains any content, right? So here we can see that, obviously RPA should say that the last free row is the 12th row. However, if you save that file into like a CSV so that you really see all these contents here, I just want to show you how tricky sometimes the Excel files are. And then you open that file in Notepad, for example. See, then you can find here lots and lots of free rows. There are like hundreds of these free rows that will be considered by the Populate desktop not as empty because they do contain something. And that is the reason for you to sometimes when you really face such a situation that the loop then that is going through all those rows you have in Excel is not actually stopping on that last row you see that contains content, that is because there is like something blank, empty strings present in additional rows, and they are still considered as non-empty rows. So now when we will be doing the loop, we need to really make a loop not really through those until the last free row, but actually we need to check if the row we are processing contains any content. All right, so now we launched the Excel, then we got the first free row and column. We can here as well say that the first column, then we need to get data from Excel. So we need to read from Excel. So we need to read the range. So the first obviously is A1. The end column is going to be the first free column, and the first free row is going to be here. And we want to as well set that as that the columns are text, and that the first line of the data is actually the column names, because it is, right? So let me just open it once again. So we see that the first line actually contains column names, so it will be then easier to reference the data we want to use in the fields. Awesome. Next step, let's do the loop. So let's do the for each. And we will go through Excel data. That's the current item. That's all fine. And so now we are simply, or maybe not yet ready. We'll do that condition as well that I mentioned. So here we'll see that if that current item, for example, first name, is empty, because it will actually be empty. Just let me do the last one, check if that was the first name. Yeah, first name with a capital E. Obviously, I was wrong. So then if the first name is empty, then we will simply end the loop. So that's the condition. And then below, like here, we are now able to really populate any kind of data or any kind of logic we want. Well, basically, in this scenario, we want to populate this data, obviously, with fields in the form with information from that Excel sheet. So now let me navigate to the page itself. So now if I now grab these UI elements, right? So I have all the buttons here now as well, and open them. You'll notice that indeed Power Automate Desktop grabbed their IDs, but as I told you, their IDs are not really unique. However, what we could do, there are multiple options how we can resolve it. First, let me just rename the selector so that I know what this selector is for. There is a phone, then there is the rest. So if you saw my session about my lessons learned around Power Automate Desktop, one of the things I'm recommending is to really rename those selectors with something that you really recognize, because, as you can see here, those selectors' names, as they were grabbed, they're absolutely saying nothing. So now once I rename them, I will be sure that I'm using the right selector for the right purpose. All right. So what I have to do is actually simply to write to the browser, right? So I need to first press the button. So I need to press the button start so that the counter starts. Let me see if, because I don't remember if the end has a different selector, but I think not. No, yes, no. Let me check. Wow, as you can see, there's lots of these classes that are here, and I honestly don't know if that's the same or not. Well, let's assume it's not. It's not. And one last thing. So if I fill this any information here, right. So I simply need to fill it with all the information. Oh, so I don't actually need that end button. So I only need to start the process and then to submit all the time. So right now we are able to populate text in a field or window on a web page. Sorry. So the first, let's say we'll populate the first name, and we'll populate it with the current item. First name, right? That easy. Now the point is that with this action, you have several as well functionalities or options that you can select or unselect to make it either faster or slower. Like emulate typing, it's useful in all these fields that are having any kind of JavaScript attached. Because if you disable it, then part of my desktop will simply put text into that field, but there will be no events like on keystroke or on key out, whatever. Like if there is any of those events attached to the form fields in the website, then obviously it is smarter to use emulate typing. Now the second thing that might be somehow needed by the forms, again having JavaScript, is this unfocused text box after filling it. Now that is sometimes used, for example, to trigger validation on a field or to trigger some kind of logic behind the form. Again, if you don't use it, then the field will not lose focus and it will even not lose. And then if you as well don't select the emulate typing, it will not even gain focus. So that's the second thing. And the third is to wait for page to load. Speaking about the form fields, you don't necessarily need to actually wait for the page to load unless, again, there is some kind of asynchronous script that is doing something in the background once you're typing or once you stop typing. Again, if you uncheck it, then I promise you this action will be executed much faster as if you have that option switched on. And that is important because sometimes you want sometimes you really want RPA to work very fast. Yeah, very fast on the website. So for this round, I will leave all these fields on, so you'll see like how fast it goes. All right, so that's the first name. Then let's just copy, paste, and I'll do the same logic for all the other fields. Then for the last name. Fine. Close. All right. So that will be the first test. Now, you'll see that right now, if I trigger this workflow, it will simply not be able to fill in any information within that website. So just save it, and well, you'll see how it goes. I'll close as well the website and let's do it. So first it's launching the website, and then it will open the Excel file, right? Read all the data. And now you can see that small thumbnail below that it is now stuck on reading Excel data. Oh, that it's actually missing the button start. So that was the first challenge. The button start must have something really unique that I can use to really find it. So what I would do is to maybe limit its selector to some very important divs. Right, so this is download Excel. I don't know if that's needed actually. And then in here, the class, I would say that it, for example, contains the waves effect. Or let's as well see what that download Excel button contains. It as well contains the waves effect, but it's not a button, right? So it's not a button. So I am really just able to say that this button simply contains the waves effect or the UI color button. That sounds even better. So that we're looking for that button. I don't even think that I need this div here. So that should be really sufficient to simply have that kind of a selector. And yep, that's it. That should be enough. And then just see the input submit here. So here I will as well limit these divs because we don't necessarily need all these divs. The form sounds like enough. So what I would say that we want to use the form that contains a class, for example, this ng pristine, and that then we want to use the button which is containing a class button. That should be enough to really find that button. All right. So now let's make a second round of tests, obviously, because why not? I'll close all these windows and run. So I do have a look at that small thumbnail here. Now I think it's reading from the Excel. So in a moment it should attempt to press the button. Fingers crossed it's working. It's still reading. Oh, now it moved on. And no, it wasn't able to find the button. Now that's odd. All right, so I'll make another attempt. Just one last time, all right? So just stay with me. Now let's just close the Excel. Maybe with that selector something is odd. So let's try to investigate. So the button has class. It has class, but it doesn't have, I think, it doesn't have a type. So maybe the problem is that it's not that the selector should be really long, but that the selector itself is just wrong. So one last attempt. I'll remove these divs because they're not necessary. And I didn't see type submit there. So let's remove the type submit and let's use the class again. So the UI color button. Oof. And for the type submit, I want to be double sure that this button as well works fine. So let's go here. Now this button is a type of submit, so that's fine. And it has a value submit. So let's try to use these two fields, these two, let's say, parameters as the selector. So I don't really need to use the form. I'll just focus on the button itself. So the class, nope, but you want to use the value and a type. And I think that this is really enough to identify this button. All right, so close the window and run again. This is all about debugging. So now again, RPA is reading the Excel sheet, and then hopefully it will move on to the button, and it will press the button this time. Yep, it pressed it. So now what you would be able to see is that it's trying to write to the first field. However, obviously it is unable to find it, right? So there was no selector with that field. Obviously there was no. And what I want to do as well is to put the datetime in the beginning of the loop, and then at the end as well, so that we'll be able to calculate the difference, right? Not here, but here, and this before the start, and then to subtract date, so that we'll be able to simply read what was the difference between these two timestamps, so like how much it took, let's say in seconds. All right, so RPA wasn't able to find the field. Obviously it wasn't. So let's go back to fields and let's see if there is anything we can use to actually identify that field. Obviously there is something. There is a parameter called ngReflectName, and this ngReflectName contains this label company name here. So what you could do in that case is to be creative and to try to find these parameters or these metadata of those fields which are constant. So despite the fact that ID is changing and the layout of the field is changing, I mean the position of the field is changing, so that you can't use the XY absolute coordinates, but you're still able to maybe find something else which is constant. So let's add now the new selector. Here we need to make it custom because this parameter, this property is not available as one of those we can choose from. So here we have only these default, right? Those default attributes which are simply present inside every field. So we need to switch to custom and then simply replace the ID and then write those labels. So for example, then what was that? That was a phone, right? The phone label possibly is just going to be label phone. Label phone. And this way you can simply follow and add these custom attributes to every field that you have. Now we are able to make another test, right? So let's run it and see if this works. In my opinion, it should work now fine. Okay, I'll just have a look at the thumbnail to see what the RPA is doing, and I see this already, again, reading the data from Excel, and just in a moment it should start. Now, note one thing, that the way that RPA works in debugging is much slower than once you trigger it in the in attended or unattended mode, obviously, right? So you can see that it really works now, but it's kind of slow. And it doesn't work because it's not pressing the submit button, obviously. I forgot to to put that press button action here. Obviously, I forgot. So for the button, you as well have this option that configures the action to either wait for the page to load or not. In our case, I don't really think we need to wait because there is nothing really reloading, or it's not even reloading anyhow in the asynchronous mode. So no way to wait. So instead of now running this in that debugging mode, I will simply run it here in attended mode. All right. So I'll just close that window and I'll close the Excel and I will run this in attended mode from here. And what I've forgotten to maybe add is the information, like how fast it's processing the information, or like what is this difference between the start and end date. So I just need to add one more action at the end of the whole logic that will display the time. So as you can see, because right now the RPA, all these actions are configured to wait until the website is loaded, then it really takes lots of time to insert this information. You can really see how every field is being typed and like it's getting focus and then losing focus, and it's really time consuming. I mean, it's still faster than if the regular user was doing that manually. Still, in my opinion, it's much slower than you would expect from a bot to be doing that, right? So I don't even really think that counting the time here is valuable, because it will take, I think, like a minute or even over a minute to complete it. Okay, well, there is information. So it took over a minute. So it's 57,000 milliseconds. Let's remember that information. Now, the other thing that we have to do right now, what I want to show you, is how fast it will take if we turn off all these options, so that this will really speed up the operation. And you'll see how fast it will be now. It was 57,000, right? Okay, so the second time, the second test, if all these options that potentially are slowing down RPA are switched off. See now how faster it is now happening. It's even so fast that it's unable to sometimes target all the fields, and well, it's missing some of the fields sometimes. Nevertheless, it is now much more faster. So we are around 9. There is just one round left. Right. I mean, it was really fast. So it took like 24 seconds. Then it was 55 seconds, right? Or 57 seconds. So it's even more than half of the time faster. All right. So that was, let's say, the second attempt. Now, what if we are unable actually to use this kind of a selector? I mean, if there is like nothing we can target as that unique parameter present in every field. So instead, what we could use is to go and use the CSS or jQuery selector. So, for example, we will be now searching for a div that has a label which contains, right, in this case, a phone number value. And then we want to target its input. So this is another approach you could use, that will simply bind a label with its input. Obviously, only in a situation where both the label and input are within, for example, the same div, like are bound together. All right, so I'll now go and update every of these selectors to this new selector. Fine, so let's make an attempt now with these new selectors so that you can see that even if you're in a situation that fields do not have any kind of that unique parameter attribute, you are still able to target them based on their labels. So now add a test with, using selectors built using the CSS approach. Something's wrong. I don't know what's going on. I think it cannot open the Excel file for some reason. Yeah, it cannot launch the Edge. I mean, it got stuck on launching the Edge. Plus, okay, so I'll just try it once again in a moment. But I just want to show you one more thing. Let's use this flow monitoring window that will just give me some more information about what the flow is doing and where. And then I can run it. Right, so now the website is loaded, and you can see that in just a moment, I hope it will go and now it has problem with the Edge. So what I would do right now, I face that issue sometimes, in the past. No idea why it's happening, but the only reason I've found so far is to simply terminate the Edge process from the task manager, so that there is like no orphaned process leftovers, whatever, and then try to run the RPA again. So sometimes there is just, I don't know, some odd things are happening. Let's just keep fingers crossed that this time it will be working fine. Right? As I said, so really RPA is really vulnerable to variety of situations and scenarios that can happen on your desktop. So that was just one of them. Now it's reading from the Excel, so it seems that everything went fine. So now it's starting to input data to the fields. And it seems that, well, somehow it's even happening faster than with the regular approach, with the previous approach with attribute. Oops. Yeah, there was some kind of an issue. So we wasn't able to find a field, which is odd, because it actually put data into that field. So that's interesting why it didn't work. However, well, I can trigger it once again, but the point is that you saw that actually these selectors are working, and I suppose, or I would expect that their speed is similar, or the same as those selectors having something as a unique attribute. And the last step, the last approach I would like to show you is how you can do the same. However, this time when using only JavaScript. So what I will do right now is I'll use that action that is called run JavaScript function on a website, on a web page. And here you're able to paste in your code, right? And the code is going to be quite simple. So we'll use, again, a code that is saying to div contains. It's very similar, going to use the same selectors as that CSS selector. Well, we'll see how it works, if faster or slower. Let's say first name for the first round, and then input. So this way, we are getting the selector or the field, and then let's set its value to obviously the first name from the current item. So here. And then value is meant to be written this way because that's what we are using, double quotes. Okay, and the same thing now has to be redone for every other field. So now the second name, and that's it, right? So with this approach, the whole process should be executed even faster. So now I'll just save it, and let's see if that works. Okay, so again, navigate to the attended mode and fire. Okay, sorry, that wasn't obviously second name, but the last name. So, gosh, such a stupid errors, right? We're all doing them sometimes. So again, save and let me just trigger it again. The tweet from Excel takes some time, but that's because, as I showed you, there are hundreds of empty rows, and the action actually is really going through every of these fields to read them. Right. So that was extremely fast. Although, well, the success rate is just 30%. So there is obviously, a lot that can be improved. Especially when speaking about the precise, the way how the action works. So the other thing that could be done is to use the same selector as I have here for the submit. So that would be it. And maybe to press submit here. So with that, it would be input type. So, it should be now clicked after the field is, after other fields are typed. What I could think maybe is as well to use that blur on each of the fields so that maybe there is any kind of an event that has to be really triggered. So this way, and then I'll as well disable the press on button. Okay, and let's do the last test. And I really keep my fingers very hard that this time the success rate is going to be 100% as it was with the first attempt. Unfortunately, there is no way to make that read from Excel faster. If you know how many rows you're expecting, you're obviously able to, simply make that, set. Whoa. Have you seen that? I didn't even say the last words of the sentence I wanted, and it is now done. So with JavaScript, we had, again, 100% of the success rate, and it took like 1 second. 1 second to fill 10 entries in that form. Extremely fast, right? And I'm really sure you can make it even faster. You can try to work on that form and enhance and tweak it so that it could be even faster. I'm really curious, what time are you able to achieve, what times you have when you're taking part in the RPA challenge. So let me know what times you had and what solutions you used to achieve them in comments below. I'm really curious. And well, having that said, again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you like it. And what is important is that this solution is not only, meant to help you solve the RPA challenge, but you will possibly be having similar challenges when working with custom forms in websites that are having those dynamic attributes and that are not really easy to, that are having fields which are not really easy to be targeted by RPA. Thank you very much for watching. Again, please subscribe, please like the video. And as I, asked you just a moment ago, write down in comments how much it took you to accomplish the RPA challenge and what approach you took to do that. Thank you very much again, and bye-bye.